Are you tired of being used, overlooked, or stepped on just because you're too nice? In a world ruled by power, we're taught to be obedient, but that obedience is your cage. Today, you'll learn how to break it. Kill the dog in you because Machiavelli demands the wolf. You were not born obedient. You were taught obedience, slowly, systematically. From the moment you took your first step, the world began its work. Sit still, don't speak until spoken to, be polite, be nice. These were not just lessons. They were chains disguised as manners, and you wore them proudly, like a good little dog. This is how they trained you. And not through brute force. No, the conditioning was elegant. Reward for compliance, punishment for rebellion. You were praised when you conformed, punished when you questioned. You smiled when told to, even if it felt wrong. You nodded when you disagreed. You bit your tongue to preserve peace, and you mistook that silence for wisdom. But what if I told you this training wasn't meant to help you? What if I told you it was meant to break you? They never wanted you to lead, they wanted you to follow, and so they clipped your claws, softened your voice, caged your instincts, and when they were done, they handed you a collar labeled civilized, and you thanked them for it. That's the dog inside you, loyal, trained, dependent. You seek approval like it's oxygen. You crave acceptance like a starving man craves food. You fear disapproval like death, and so you obey, you serve. You fetch, but while you're wagging your tail, hoping someone will love you for being good, someone else, more ruthless, more cunning, is climbing over you, taking what you were promised. In a world that rewards dominance and punishes passivity, the obedient dog always loses. This world is not kind to those who wait. This world is not fair to those who play fair. It favors the bold. It crowns the strategist. It bows to the ruthless. Do you think being nice is enough? That if you stay good, eventually someone will notice and reward you? That's what the world told you, and you believed it. But look at where that's gotten you. You've been overlooked, stepped on, used, dismissed, not because you're not capable, but because you're too predictable, too tame, too manageable. The dog seeks structure, routine, permission. He waits for signals. He doesn't act unless commanded. And even if he senses danger, he waits for someone else to do something. That's why the world prefers dogs. Not just the literal ones, but the human ones. The ones who obey without resistance. The ones who follow orders without thinking. The ones who stay in line, because they're easy to control. But here's the Machiavellian truth. The more you act like the dog, the more people will treat you like one. The boss who ignores your ideas, the friend who only calls when they need something, the lover who keeps you around but never chooses you. They don't see your goodness. They see your usefulness, and when your usefulness runs out, so does their attention. You've become domesticated, house-trained, soft, and that softness is costing you everything. You must ask yourself, why do you keep saying yes when you want to say no? Why do you keep helping people who wouldn't help you? Why do you keep chasing those who keep avoiding you? Because deep down, the dog in you believes that obedience will be rewarded. But in the real world, especially in the world Machiavelli knew, obedience is not rewarded. It is exploited. Those who hold power, true power, don't seek approval, they command it. They don't ask for permission. They seize the moment. They don't sit by the door waiting. They kick it open, and that's where the wolf begins. But before the wolf can rise, the dog must die. Because as long as the dog lives within you, timid, obedient, hopeful, you will never claim what's yours. You will keep shrinking, bending, waiting. And while you do, someone else, the one who learned to snarl, to hunt, to strike, will take what you deserved. So the question isn't, will someone give you a chance? The real question is, when will you stop being the dog? Kindness is a beautiful thing, they told you. The world needs more of it. Be gentle, be humble, be generous, be forgiving. From childhood, these ideas were carved into your brain like commandments, and you followed them because you thought they were noble. You thought they were the right thing. You thought kindness would earn you respect, love, loyalty. But the world you live in doesn't reward kindness, it uses it. Because kindness without the capacity to be dangerous, without the presence of strength behind it, is weakness in disguise. And predators smell weakness like blood. You've been kind, you've helped others, you've stayed quiet in arguments to keep the peace. You've given chances to people who didn't deserve them. You've forgiven betrayals, tolerated disrespect, accepted less than your worth, because you believed that kindness would eventually pay off. You believed that being good would lead to good outcomes. So why are you the one getting hurt? Why are you the one overlooked? Why are you the one constantly recovering from wounds inflicted by people you were kind to? Because your kindness has no edge. It has no threat behind it. No consequences. It's soft. It's toothless. And in a Machiavellian world, kindness without power is not seen as goodness. It's seen as a tool. People don't respond to goodness. They respond to pressure. They respond to fear. They respond to what they cannot control. Your kindness, when it's predictable and passive, becomes currency they don't value, and they spend it however they like. They'll take your time. They'll take your loyalty. They'll take your forgiveness again and again, and they'll never repay it, because they know something you haven't realized yet. You won't do anything about it. That's why the world doesn't treat you the way you deserve. It treats you the way you allow. You see, there's a massive difference between being kind and being harmless. You think they're the same. You think being harmless makes you moral. You think being non-threatening is virtuous. But Machiavelli would laugh at that. To him, morality is not about submission. It's about control. He said, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." And the reason is simple. Fear protects you when love fails. But you've built your life on love alone. You've convinced yourself that if you're just good enough, loyal enough, patient enough, the world will eventually return the favor. It won't. Because without the ability to assert, to fight, to enforce your value, your kindness becomes a script they've read 100 times before. They know you'll forgive. They know you'll stay. They know you'll never walk away. And so they exploit you, not because you're kind, but because you're kind without consequence. Because your kindness is automatic, not deliberate. It's not a choice made from strength. It's a default setting you never turned off. That's why it has no value. But imagine something different. Imagine a kindness that comes from a place of power, not fear. A kindness that says, "I help because I choose to, not because I'm afraid of being disliked." A kindness that has teeth behind the smile. A kindness that knows its own limits and enforces them without apology. That's the kind of kindness Machiavelli would respect. That's the kind of kindness that shapes kings, not servants. Because when your kindness is backed by strength, when people know there's a limit, a line that cannot be crossed, then your generosity becomes meaningful. Then your forgiveness has weight. Then your silence makes them nervous, not comfortable. But as long as you're nice just to be accepted, kind just to avoid conflict, humble because you're scared of being too much, then all you're doing is giving your power away. You think the people around you don't notice. They notice everything. They know exactly who they can manipulate, who they can guilt, who they can call when they're in trouble, who will always say yes. They keep you close not because they respect you, but because you're useful, because your kindness is a resource, not a reflection of mutual value, and you've trained them to think that way. Every time you avoid confrontation, every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you forgive without change, you teach them that your kindness is endless and your strength is invisible. So they keep taking. And the world doesn't stop them because the world doesn't protect the kind. It protects the strong. It honors the dangerous. It obeys the one who can give and take away. There are two sides to every ruler, the one they show and the one they hide. The mask and the teeth, the voice and the claws, and if you only have one, you will lose, because the world is not moved by purity alone, nor by brute force alone. It is moved by those who can master both. Those who can speak like philosophers and strike like predators. Those who can wear silk on the surface but carry steel underneath. That is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote, "A prince must know how to fight with both the laws and with the beasts." Because there will come a time when words are not enough, when negotiation fails, when honor becomes a cage. And in that moment, if all you have are rules, you will be devoured by those who know how to bend or break them. You've tried being the rational one, the man who plays fair, who reasons, who keeps his promises. You've believed in the goodness of people, in dialogue, in compromise. You believed that being civilized meant avoiding the beast. But the beast is not your enemy. The beast is your edge. The truth is, no matter how noble you think you are, the world around you is still tribal, primal, and predatory. Behind every handshake is a calculation. Behind every smile is a hierarchy. Behind every polite conversation is someone measuring your worth, not by your words, but by your leverage. You must become both beast and man. The man knows how to speak, how to persuade, how to plan. He builds alliances, constructs systems, and uses reason as a tool of influence. The man understands timing, diplomacy, and restraint. But the man without the beast becomes fragile, predictable, easy to trap. Because when the system fails him, and it always will, the man alone doesn't know how to bite. That's where the beast comes in. The beast is not mindless rage. It is not chaos. It is not weakness. The beast is instinct sharpened into strategy. It is your shadow self, alert, unsympathetic, clear-eyed. It knows when someone is using you. It senses manipulation, smells deception. It doesn't beg. It doesn't hope. It moves. It strikes. It survives. The beast protects what the man builds. The world has taught you to suppress that part of yourself, to call it toxic, dangerous, wrong. But Machiavelli knew better. He didn't say destroy the beast. He said learn from it. Because there are battles that require diplomacy, and there are battles that require dominance. And if you can't switch between the two, you're not a complete force, you're a half-built weapon. You've seen this in life already. You've watched people less talented than you rise higher. You've watched manipulators get promoted. You've watched charm win over merit. Why? Because they understood the power of shifting between faces, between kindness and intimidation, between invitation and threat. They know how to be the fox and the lion. But you were told to just be good, to play one role, and every time someone tested your boundaries, you hesitated. You wanted to stay calm. You didn't want to offend. You thought, if I'm patient, they'll stop. If I stay reasonable, they'll change. They didn't. They saw your restraint as weakness, your politeness as surrender, because they weren't just dealing with the man. They were waiting to see if there was a beast behind your eyes, and there wasn't. So they kept taking. You can no longer afford to be one thing. You must be both. When you speak, they should listen, not because you're loud, but because you carry power that is both intellectual and instinctive. When you forgive, they should be grateful, because they know you could have chosen revenge. When you are kind, they should respect it, not because it's soft, but because it's backed by force. You must be the kind of person who understands peace, but is ready for war. The kind who can shake hands with one man while calculating 3 moves ahead. The kind who can sit at the table with kings, but also walk alone through the wilderness without fear. Machiavelli did not believe in morality as weakness. He believed in control, mastery, and no one who has mastered themselves fears their darker side. They use it. You must not be ashamed of your instincts. You must train them, refine them, bring them into harmony with your intellect. Because the man who only speaks with reason will always lose to the one who also knows when to growl. People don't respect your intentions. They respect your influence. They don't admire your hope. They follow your force. You can speak with all the honesty in the world, but if there's no weight behind your words, no presence that demands attention, they'll nod and move on. Because in this world, the currency of respect is power. You've probably felt this imbalance already. You speak from the heart. You try to be fair. You try to be clear, understanding, honest. But people talk over you. They delay your worth. They test your limits. And they do it because they can. Because they don't feel anything when they're in your presence. No tension, no consequence, no danger. That's the part nobody tells you when they teach you to be a good person. Being good without power doesn't earn respect. It earns tolerance. People will smile at you, compliment your character, but they won't listen, they won't yield, they won't follow, because what they're really looking for, what they instinctively respond to, is strength. Not just physical strength, psychological strength, emotional dominance, the kind of quiet force that enters a room and alters its atmosphere, the kind of presence that makes people choose their words more carefully around you. Not out of fear of violence, but out of respect for your sovereignty. You see, we live in a world where most people pretend to be confident. They inflate their voices. They decorate their personalities. But deep down, they're hoping someone else will give them permission to matter. But that's not how power works. Power is not given, it's not requested, it's taken through control of yourself and control of the space around you. That's why people bow to it. They don't even know why. It's instinctive. It's primal. The same way animals submit to the alpha, humans respond to the unshakable, the one who doesn't explain himself, the one who doesn't react emotionally, the one who can sit in silence and still dominate the room. Machiavelli understood this truth better than anyone. He didn't believe in begging for affection. He believed in commanding respect. And he wrote clearly, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, when one of the two must be lacking." But let's be clear, this isn't about tyranny, it's about presence. You've been taught to prove yourself, to show your worth, to explain your decisions, to justify your dreams, and every time you do that, you chip away at your power. Because the powerful don't explain, they declare. If you have to convince someone to respect you, they already don't. They respect you when they can feel your boundaries without you saying a word, when they know your time is expensive, when your silence is heavier than other people's noise, when your gaze makes them reconsider their strategy. That's the kind of power that builds kingdoms, and that's the kind of power Machiavelli demanded. He knew people would always try to control you through emotion, guilt, pity, love, fear. But he also knew that once you remove the need to be liked, the game changes. Because the man who doesn't need validation can't be manipulated. You've spent too long asking for what you should be claiming. You've lowered your tone to avoid conflict. You've stayed in bad situations because you didn't want to look harsh. You've let people overstep because you thought protecting the relationship mattered more than protecting your self-respect. But here's the reality. People don't remember how much you sacrificed. They remember how much you tolerated. And once they know you'll keep tolerating, they never stop testing. That's why Machiavelli's wisdom is dangerous, because it tells you the truth no one else will. Power isn't about being liked. It's about being respected without compromise. And if you have to choose between being liked and being taken seriously, always choose the latter. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to become cruel, but you do need to stop pleading for things you should be commanding. You do need to stop proving yourself to people who already decided what you're worth. They don't follow your kindness. They follow your center. Your unmovable posture, your ability to walk away, your refusal to chase. And once they feel that, they shift. Their tone changes, their attention sharpens, they choose their words differently, not because you begged them to, but because they know they're now in the presence of someone who holds power. Real power, the kind that doesn't flinch. You were not born weak. You were trained to be tame, conditioned to serve, taught to obey. They caged the wolf in you and handed you the role of the dog, loyal, polite, powerless. But that role ends today because Machiavelli never wrote for the obedient. He wrote for those who seek power without apology. And power does not live in obedience. It lives in dominance, in control, in the ability to shift between beast and man, grace and brutality, light and shadow. If you keep living as the dog, soft, predictable, dependent, you will be used, dismissed, forgotten. But if you awaken the wolf, strategic, cold, unshakable, the world will respond differently. They'll pause when you speak, they'll measure their words, they'll watch their step because they'll feel it. What you've become, the wolf does not chase, the wolf does not beg, the wolf waits, the wolf watches. And when the moment comes, he acts, so look in the mirror, decide who walks out the door tomorrow, because Machiavelli demands the wolf and the world, it only respects the ones who answer.